The Grand Conclave of the Galactic Council met in the tall, shining spire of Varel Prime. This world was chosen because it had no side in any war and had hosted peace talks for centuries. Inside the great dome, light from 3 suns filtered through crystal walls, casting soft rainbows across the floor. Over 200 alien species filled the chamber. Some floated in anti-gravity bubbles. Others sat on custom-built perches or stood on many legs. Their voices mixed into a low hum of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. Among them sat the human delegation. They were small in number, just 5 people, but they carried the weight of Earth and its colonies. At the front sat Daniel Hayes. He was in his late 40s with tired eyes and a calm face. Beside him was Maya Ruiz, younger but sharp, her fingers always moving over a small data pad. They had come with hope. They believed the council could still be fair. For months, the debate had centered on the Cathari expanse. It was a stretch of space far from Earth, filled with rare minerals that powered faster than light travel. Without those minerals, ships could not jump between stars. The expanse was also home to quiet worlds, ancient nebulae, and fragile ecosystems. Humans had mapped it carefully, studied it for years, and proposed a plan. Shared access, strict environmental rules, and equal rights for all species who depended on it. But the Velnari hegemony had other ideas. Tall, silver-skinned, and proud, the Velnari had ruled large parts of the galaxy for generations. They claimed the expanse needed strong management to prevent chaos. Their ally, the Zorath Collective, backed them. The Zorath were warriors, broad, armored, and loud. They spoke of security, but their eyes gleamed with greed. Together, they pushed for full control of the region, with little regard for smaller species or long-term damage. Daniel had argued again and again. He showed data. He shared reports from scientists on Earth and Mars. He reminded the Council that humans had never taken more than they needed. They had even helped rebuild Zorath outposts after a solar storm 2 years ago, but his words were brushed aside. The Velnari called human ideas sentimental. The Zorath laughed and said humans fear strength. The vote came on a quiet morning. The council chamber filled with tension. Each species cast their choice through glowing orbs. The result appeared on the central holoscreen, 178 in favor of the Velnari-Zorath plan, 32 against, and 12 abstentions. The humans had been outnumbered, ignored, and outmaneuvered. Daniel did not shout. He did not slam his fist. He simply stood. His chair made a soft sound as it slid back. Every eye in the room turned to him. Even the floating jelly-like beings from the Andromeda Rim paused their gentle pulsing. "If this is what the Galactic Council calls justice," he said, his voice clear and steady, "then humanity has no place here." He turned and walked away. Maya followed without a word. The other human delegates rose and left with them. No one stopped them. No one spoke. The silence was heavier than any shout. Outside the spire, the air was cool and clean. Wind rustled through the silver-leafed trees of Varel Prime. A council shuttle waited to take them back to their ship. As they boarded, Maya looked back at the great dome. "They'll regret this," she said quietly. "Maybe," Daniel replied, "but we don't stay where we're not wanted." Aboard the Aurora's Resolve, orbiting far above, the mood was grim. The ship was sleek and white, built for speed and peace, not war. Its crew watched the live feed from the summit. When they saw the humans walk out, some cheered. Others just stared, stunned. Captain Elena Torres met Daniel and Maya in the command deck. "What now?" she asked. "Now we go home," Daniel said. "And we tell Earth the truth." The Council chose power over peace. Back on Earth, news spread fast. In New Chicago, people gathered in squares to watch the broadcast replay. In the lunar colonies, miners paused their drills. On Mars, students debated in university halls. Some called the withdrawal foolish. "We need allies," they said. Others called it brave. "We stood for what's right," they argued. The Earth Alliance government held an emergency session. President Alan Wright listened to reports from every department. Trade, defense, science all warned of risks. Cutting ties with the Council could mean lost contracts, closed ports, even blockades. But public opinion shifted quickly. A simple message spread across networks: "We don't beg for a seat at a broken table." Within hours, Earth issued a formal statement. All human diplomats would leave Council stations within 7 days. Human ships would no longer patrol joint security zones. Trade agreements tied to Council approval would be reviewed. It was not a declaration of war. It was a step back, a quiet refusal to play a game rigged against fairness. On Varel Prime, the Council tried to act as if nothing had changed. The Velnari ambassador gave a speech about new order and stability. The Zorath cheered. But beneath the surface, doubt crept in. The Lumen, a gentle species of light beings, whispered to each other in their soft glow. The Trell, small rodent-like traders, began packing their goods, fearing tariffs. Even some Velnari officials exchanged uneasy glances. Humans had always been strange, too emotional, too idealistic. But they had also been honest. And reliable. A young human analyst named Leo Grant stayed behind. He worked in the Council archives, translating old Earth texts and helping new species understand human history. He was not part of the official delegation, so he wasn't recalled. That night, he sat alone in his small room, watching the stars through a clear dome. He knew the humans had made enemies, but he also knew something the Council had forgotten. Humans did not act out of pride. They acted out of principle. And when pushed too far, they did not break. They stepped aside and let the world see what it lost. The Aurora's resolve jumped to light speed that evening, leaving Varel Prime behind. On the bridge, Daniel looked at the star map. Earth was a tiny blue dot in the distance. He thought of his daughter who had asked him before he left, "Will you make peace, Dad?" He hadn't answered then. Now he whispered to the stars. Maybe peace starts with saying no. The galaxy kept turning. Ships flew. Markets traded. But something had shifted. The humans were gone from the table. And for the first time in decades, the Galactic Council felt incomplete. Back aboard the Earth Alliance vessel, Aurora's Resolve, orbiting a quiet moon in neutral space, Daniel Hayes sat alone in his quarters. The ship hummed softly around him, its systems running smooth and quiet. Outside the viewport, stars burned cold and distant. He stared at a message from Earth, short, clear, and firm. All human diplomats were to return home. Council outposts were to be abandoned. The withdrawal was now official policy, not just a protest. Maya Ruiz found him there an hour later. She didn't knock. She just leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she said. "Feels like it," Daniel replied, but he managed a small smile. "How's the crew holding up?" "Better than expected," she said, stepping inside. Some were angry at first. Thought we gave up too easy. But after seeing how the Council treated us, most agree we did the right thing. News from Earth had been mixed. In cities like Denver and Cape Town, people held rallies supporting the decision. They waved flags with the old Earth symbol, a blue circle with green continents, and chanted about dignity and self-respect. But in trade hubs like Singapore Orbital and Luna City, business leaders worried. Human goods might be blocked at Council ports. Fuel prices could rise. Jobs could vanish. Still, the government held firm. President Alan Wright gave a speech that reached every colony. "We do not seek conflict," he said. "But we will not pretend fairness exists where there is none." The word spread fast. Even on distant mining stations near Jupiter, workers paused to listen. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Council moved on without humans. The Cathari Accord was signed within days of the human exit. The Velnari hegemony took control of the expanse, backed by Zorath warships. They promised order and efficiency. At first, things seemed calm. Trade routes stayed open. Patrols ran on schedule. But cracks soon appeared. The Zorath began mining operations deep inside the expanse, using drills that tore through planetary crusts. They ignored warnings from local species about unstable tectonic zones. Within weeks, 2 small moons cracked apart, sending debris into nearby lanes. Ships had to reroute. Delays piled up. The Velnari blamed natural instability, but scientists from neutral worlds whispered the truth. The Zorath had rushed for profit. Then came the tariffs. The Velnari claimed they needed funds to maintain security, so they raised fees on all non-hegemony ships passing through the expanse. Small traders, the Trell, the Mur, the free merchants of the Orion Belt, suddenly faced costs they couldn't afford. Some went bankrupt, others turned to smuggling. Piracy, once rare in that sector, began to rise. On fringe worlds that once relied on human-mediated trade deals, shelves emptied. Medicine ran low. Clean water filters broke and couldn't be replaced. The Council sent promises, not help. "Stability takes time," their envoy said. But the people were hungry now and patience was thin. Back on Varel Prime, a young human named Leo Grant watched it all unfold. He hadn't left with the delegation because his role was cultural, not political. He worked in the council archives, translating old Earth literature and explaining human customs to curious aliens. Most ignored him, until now. Leo noticed something others missed. Before humans stepped back, they had quietly helped settle 3 separate disputes. One involved water rights on a desert moon. Another was a border clash between 2 insectoid clans. The third was a trade feud between floating cities and the gas giant Ymir. In each case, human mediators had listened, proposed fair terms, and walked away once peace held. Leo compiled the data. He showed how those regions stayed calm for years after. He compared them to similar conflicts the council handled alone, where force, not talk, was used and resentment festered. He sent his report to the Council Ethics Review Board. It was read by a tired clerk stamped low priority and filed away. But fate has its own timing. A month later, a Mer trader, small, furry, with large black eyes, came to the archives seeking old trade maps. He saw Leo's report on a desk. He asked about it. Leo explained. The Mer named Kip took a copy. He shared it with his people. They shared it with the Trell. Soon, the report was circulating in hidden networks across the outer systems. On Earth, life went on. Factories built new ships. Farms grew more food. Scientists worked on better engines and cleaner energy. The Alliance wasn't hiding. They were preparing, not for war, but for independence. Admiral Nora Finch, in charge of Earth's defense fleet, ordered quiet upgrades to all patrol vessels. "We don't want fights," she told her captains. "But if someone comes knocking, we answer with strength, not fear." The Aurora's resolve stayed in neutral space, monitoring signals. Maya spent her days analyzing intercepted comms. She heard Zorath officers bragging about easy profits in the expanse. She heard Velnari officials complain about ungrateful minor species. She also heard whispers of unrest, protests on mining colonies, strikes on trade hubs, even a failed rebellion on a Velnari supply world. Daniel read her reports each evening. "They thought we were the problem," he said once. "But we were the glue." Time passed. 2 months. 3. The galaxy changed in small, quiet ways. Species that once looked to the Council for help now looked elsewhere. Some sent secret messages to Earth, not asking for rescue, just asking if humans would trade fairly without strings. Earth said yes. New routes opened. Small convoys of human freighters began moving between neutral systems, carrying medicine, tools, and seeds. No weapons. No demands. Just help, the Council noticed. At first, they dismissed it as charity nonsense. But when a Trell convoy under human escort passed safely through a pirate-infested zone, while Council ships stayed far away, doubt grew. Even some Velnari citizens began to question. In private forums, they asked, "Why did we push the humans out?" They never asked for more than a fair share. Leo Grant kept working. He didn't speak out. He just kept sharing facts. He showed how human ships always left ports cleaner than they found them. How their doctors treated aliens without asking for payment. How their engineers fixed broken stations for free. Slowly, a new image of humanity spread, not as weak idealists, but as steady, reliable partners who asked for nothing but respect. One evening, a Velnari junior ambassador approached Leo in the archives. "Is it true," he asked, voice low, "that humans once saved a Zorath colony from a solar flare and never told anyone?" Leo nodded. "They did, and they'd do it again even now." The ambassador said nothing, but he walked away with a new look in his eyes. Thoughtful, not proud. Far from Varel Prime on a quiet moon near the edge of known space, Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Aurora's Resolve. Maya joined him. Below them, a human freighter docked, unloading crates marked with green medical symbols. Aliens from 3 different species waited to receive them. "They're starting to see it," Maya said. "See what?" Daniel asked. "That we didn't leave because we were weak," she said. "We left because we were strong enough to walk away." Daniel didn't answer. He just watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning a hard lesson, and humanity, silent and steady, was letting it learn. Months passed. The humans stayed quiet. They did not send angry messages. They did not beg to return. They simply lived their lives, traded with those who asked fairly and kept their borders open to refugees and travelers alike. Earth's colonies grew stronger. New ships rolled off the docks in orbit around Mars and Titan. Factories hummed. Schools taught children not just math and science, but also history, especially the kind that warned against blind trust in power. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, struggled. Without human mediators, old tensions flared. The Zorath pushed harder into the Cathari expanse, claiming more territory each week. The Velnari tried to keep order, but their rules favored the strong, not the many. Smaller species felt squeezed. Trade slowed. Fear spread. Then came the attack on Helios. Station Helios was a research outpost floating near the edge of the Perseus Arm. It was neutral, ground, home to scientists from a dozen species studying cosmic storms and ancient star maps. No weapons were kept there. No armies, just minds and machines. One night, without warning, raiders struck. They came in black ships with no markings. They cut comms, smashed labs, and took hostages. Their goal was unclear. Maybe data, maybe ransom, maybe just chaos. Distress calls shot out across the sector. The nearest council patrol was 3 days away. The Velnari fleet was busy securing a new mining zone. The Zorath ignored the call. They called Helios useless science. Panic spread through the station. Scientists huddled in shielded rooms. Children cried. Hope faded. But help came faster than anyone expected. Within hours, 3 human frigates dropped out of light speed near Helios. Sleek, gray, and fast, they moved like shadows. Behind them came a white medical cruiser, its lights steady and calm. No warning, no announcement. Just action. The frigates split up. One jammed the raiders' signals. Another fired precise bursts to disable engines, not hulls. The third moved to block escape routes. The raiders, used to easy targets, panicked. They tried to flee, but the human ships were quicker. Within 20 minutes, the fight was over. The raiders surrendered. No one on Helios was hurt. Then the medical cruiser docked. Human doctors and engineers poured out. They treated the shaken scientists, repaired broken systems, and even helped rebuild a damaged nursery where young Mur had been hiding. They worked through the night. When the council patrol finally arrived 2 days later, the humans were already leaving. They took no credit. They asked for no thanks. They just undocked, powered up, and vanished into the stars. But someone had recorded everything. A young Trell scientist, hiding in a storage closet during the attack, had activated a tiny cam. The footage showed human soldiers helping an elderly Lumen being to safety. It showed a human engineer sharing water with a scared Zorath child. Yes, even a Zorath, because the raiders had taken families from all species. It showed calm voices, gentle hands, and no weapons drawn once the threat was gone. The video spread like fire. It reached Varel Prime within a day. Council members watched it in silence. Some looked away. Others replayed it again and again. On Earth, people saw it too, but they didn't cheer. They just nodded. This was who they were. This was what they did. Admiral Nora Finch watched the footage from her office in New Vancouver. Rain tapped against the window. She had ordered the rescue herself, against advice from some of her staff. "We're not part of the council anymore," they'd said. "Why risk our ships?" But Nora knew better. "Because it's right," she told them. And that was enough. Now across the galaxy, opinions shifted. On trade worlds, merchants spoke of human reliability. On farming moons, parents told their kids about the quiet heroes from Earth. Even some Zorath warriors, proud and fierce, admitted in private that the humans showed true strength, not in how they fought, but in how they chose not to. Back on Helios Station, the lead scientist, a soft-spoken being named Elira from the waterworlds of Salos, sent a message to Earth. It was simple. "Thank you for remembering that all lives matter." Earth's reply was shorter. "We never forgot." The council tried to spin the story. They claimed the humans had acted recklessly and without authority, but no one believed them. The truth was too clear, too kind, too human. Then something unexpected happened. A human mining consortium, private, not government-run, began working in the Orion Rim. They weren't after war or power. They signed a quiet deal with the Mur people to help mine a small moon rich in clean energy crystals. The Mur had lived there for generations but lacked the tech to extract the minerals safely. Humans brought drills that didn't scar the land. They trained Mur workers. They shared profits fairly. When the Zorath heard, they sent a warship. This moon is under Zorath protection, their captain barked over open comms. The human foreman, a quiet man named Carl Briggs, stood on the surface in a simple suit. He didn't raise his voice. "We're here by invitation of the Mer Council," he said. "Check your own records. You signed a non-interference pact with them last year." The Zorath captain checked. He had. He growled, turned his ship, and left. News of this spread too. Not as fast as the Helios rescue, but deeper. It showed humans didn't need fleets or threats. They just needed trust, and they honored it. On Earth, President Alan Wright gave no speeches about it. He didn't need to. People understood. Humanity wasn't hiding. They weren't waiting for permission. They were building a different kind of galaxy. One deal, one rescue, one act of quiet decency at a time. Leo Grant, still in the council archives, received a message from a Velnari scholar. "Your people confuse us," it read. "You walk away from power, yet everyone follows you." "How?" Leo didn't reply right away. He thought for a long time. Then he wrote back, "We don't lead with force. We lead by example." Far out in neutral space, Daniel Hayes and Maya Ruiz watched the latest reports from Helios and the Orion Rim. They sat in the mess hall of the Aurora's Resolve, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt toast, standard ship brew. "They're starting to see us clearly now," Maya said. "Not us," Daniel corrected gently. "What we stand for." He looked out the window. Stars glittered endless and cold, but somewhere out there warmth was returning. Not from treaties or votes, but from actions. From choices. From humans doing what was right, even when no one was watching. And that, he knew, was harder to ignore than any army. Pressure built inside the Galactic Council like steam in a sealed pot. The humans were gone, but their absence left a hole that grew wider every day. Small species, the Lumen, the Trell, the Mer, began speaking up in meetings. They asked hard questions. Why were tariffs so high? Why were Zorath patrols allowed to search ships without cause? Why did the Velnari always get the best mining rights? The old answers, for stability, for security, no longer satisfied. The Helios rescue had changed something deep in the galaxy's mind. It wasn't just that humans had helped. It was how they had done it, without fanfare, without demands, without even staying to be thanked. That kind of quiet courage made the Council's polished speeches sound hollow. Then came the moon incident in the Cathari Expanse. The Zorath, hungry for more resources, claimed a small moon called Vesa 9. It held no cities, no armies, just rare ice crystals used in medical tech. The native Mer had lived there for centuries, harvesting gently, living in balance. The Zorath sent a fleet, declared the moon unclaimed, and began drilling. But they were wrong. Unseen by the Council, the Mer had signed a quiet agreement with a human mining group months earlier. Not a takeover, not a sale, a partnership. Humans would help extract the crystals using clean tech, and the Mer would keep control of the land. The deal was filed in neutral registries, not Council records, because the Mer no longer trusted the Council to be fair. When the Zorath arrived, they found human engineers already there, working alongside Mer elders. The humans didn't raise weapons. They simply showed the signed treaty. The Zorath captain, a proud warrior named Gorvak, sneered at first. But when he checked the neutral registry, the document was real, valid, binding under galactic common law. He had no choice. He withdrew. The news traveled fast. For the first time, a species had stood up to the Zorath, not with guns, but with paper and partnership. And humans had stood with them, not above them. On Varel Prime, the mood shifted. In back corridors and quiet cafes, diplomats whispered, maybe the humans were right about shared stewardship. Maybe strength isn't just about force. Even some Velnari officials began to wonder. Their young scholars studied old Earth history, how humans had rebuilt after their own world wars, how they'd sent aid to enemies after disasters. It made no sense to a culture that valued dominance, but it worked. A junior Velnari delegate named Tira Voss took a risk. She gathered data, trade reports, conflict logs, rescue records, and showed how human involvement had lowered violence in every region they touched. She presented it not as praise but as fact. We removed a stabilizing force, she told her superiors. Now we pay the price. Her report was ignored at first, but then the Lumen delegation shared it with the Trell. The Trell shared it with free traders. Soon, it was everywhere. The breaking point came when the Zorath tried to tax a neutral medical convoy heading to a plague-stricken world in the Orion Belt. The convoy carried human-made antivirals, donated, not sold. The Zorath demanded a transit fee of half the cargo. The convoy refused. The Zorath threatened to seize the ships. Before they could act, a human frigate appeared. Just one, it didn't fire. It simply moved between the Zorath warship and the convoy. A calm voice came over open channel. This cargo is humanitarian aid under Galactic Common Code 7. You have no right to stop it. The Zorath captain hesitated. He knew the code. He also knew that if he fired on a human ship now, after Helios, the galaxy would turn against him completely. He cursed, turned his ship, and left. The convoy reached the sick world. Thousands were saved. Again, humans asked for nothing. This time, the council could not pretend it didn't matter. In the grand chamber, voices rose. The Mer elder, small and wrapped in soft cloth, stood on a platform built just for him. You called humans emotional, he said, his voice thin but clear. But who showed more care for life? You who let us starve? Or them who came in silence and gave without taking? No one answered. A week later, a group of mid-tier species, Trell, Lumen, Mer, and others, proposed a new charter. It included rotating leadership, so no one species could dominate. It required environmental reviews before mining. It gave smaller species veto power on issues that affected their survival, and it created an ethics board modeled on old human councils, where decisions were judged not by power, but by fairness. The Velnari hegemony fought it. The Zorath called it weakness, but support grew. Even some Velnari trade ministers backed it. They'd lost too much business to the chaos. Then something surprising happened. Respected Velnari ambassador Kale Voran requested a private channel with Earth. He wanted to talk, not to demand, not to threaten. To ask Earth did not answer his call. Instead, a message was sent to every major news network, every embassy, every public screen across known space. It was short. It showed Daniel Hayes standing on the bridge of the Aurora's Resolve. Stars behind him. Humanity engages only with equals who value mutual respect, he said, not dominance disguised as order. The words spread like wind through dry grass. They were repeated in markets and schools and council halls. Even Zorath warriors muttered them in their barracks. The phrase stuck because it was true. Humans had never asked for special treatment. They had only asked to be treated fairly. On Earth, people watched the broadcast in silence. In New Chicago, a child asked her mother, "Are we going back to the council now?" The mother smiled. Only if they learned to listen. Back on Virel Prime, Cal Voran read the message again and again. He had spent his life believing strength meant control. Now he wondered if real strength meant knowing when to share power. Leo Grant, still in the archives, received a visit from Tira Voss. She looked tired but hopeful. "We're changing," she said slowly. "But we're trying," Leo nodded. "Humans don't expect perfection," he said. "Just honesty." Days turned into weeks. The new charter gained more support. Protests against Zorath overreach grew louder. Trade routes once blocked by tariffs reopened as species bypassed council ports and dealt directly with human convoys. The galaxy was rewiring itself, not through war but through choice. And through all of it, humanity remained calm. They didn't gloat. They didn't rush back in. They waited, not out of pride but principle. They had shown what they stood for. Now it was the council's turn to prove they had learned. Far from the politics, on a quiet asteroid near Mars, a human engineer named Carl Briggs taught Mer children how to fix solar panels. They laughed as sparks flew. No one filmed it. No one reported it. But it mattered. Because peace isn't built in grand chambers. It's built in small acts of trust repeated every day. And the galaxy at last was starting to understand. A year after the humans walked out of the Grand Conclave, the Galactic Council did something no one thought possible. They asked for a meeting, not on Virel Prime, not in their grand crystal spire, but in a small orbital station near the edge of Earth's solar system. It was a humble place, used for cargo transfers and minor repairs, not diplomacy. The choice was deliberate. They came not as rulers, but as guests. The new charter had passed. Barely, but it passed. It included everything the humans had once proposed: shared access to resources, environmental safeguards, equal voice for small species, and an ethics board with real power. The Zorath had refused to sign, but even they stayed quiet, watching from the shadows. The Velnari hegemony, once proud and unshakable, had split. Some still clung to old ways. Others, like Ambassador Kael Voran, saw the future clearly now. Earth did not respond right away. Days passed. The council delegation waited aboard their ship, nervous and unsure. They had expected anger, demands, maybe even a list of punishments. But Earth sent no message. Only silence. Then, on the 5th morning, a signal came. Clear. Calm. Proceed to Docking Bay 3. Daniel Hayes and Maya Ruiz arrived in standard Earth Alliance uniforms, dark blue with simple silver trim. No medals, no ceremonial robes. They walked with quiet confidence, not arrogance. Behind them came Admiral Nora Finch and President Alan Wright's senior advisor, a calm woman named Helen Cho. They carried no weapons. They needed none. Inside the station's main chamber, the council delegates stood. Kael Voran stepped forward first. He bowed slightly, a gesture rare among his people. "We come to ask for your return," he said. "Not as subjects, not as juniors, as partners." Daniel looked at him, then at the others, the lumen glowing softly, the myrrh wrapped in woven cloth, even a Trell representative fidgeting with hopeful eyes. He saw no pride in their faces, only humility. "We don't seek seats at your table," Daniel said. "We seek to build a better one, together." A murmur moved through the room. Relief, respect, maybe even hope. The talks lasted 3 days. Not in grand speeches, but in quiet rooms with shared meals and open screens. Humans did not demand apologies. They asked for actions. They wanted the new charter enforced, not just signed. They insisted that the Cathari expanse be managed by a council of all affected species, not just the powerful. And they asked that Helios Station and others like it be declared protected zones, free from military presence. The council agreed, not all at once, not without debate, but they agreed. As the final terms were sealed, Leo Grant arrived from Varel Prime. He had been promoted, not by Earth but by the council itself, to serve as a cultural attaché in the new ethics board. When he saw Daniel, he smiled. "They finally read my reports," he said. "Better late than never," Daniel replied. The first joint task force launched a week later. 2 human frigates, 1 Velnari scout ship, and a Myrrh science vessel headed for the Cathari expanse. Their mission was not to claim but to heal. They would map damaged zones, stop illegal mining, and help native species rebuild. Humans brought engineers. Velnari brought legal experts. Myrrh brought knowledge of the land. It was the kind of cooperation the galaxy had forgotten was possible. On Earth, people watched the launch from public screens in parks and plazas. Children pointed at the ships. Elders nodded in quiet pride. No one shouted. No one celebrated with fireworks. They didn't need to. They knew what this meant. Not victory, not revenge. Just the slow return of fairness. Admiral Nora Finch stood on the observation deck of Earth Command, watching the feed. Captain Elena Torres, now in charge of the joint fleet, gave a thumbs up before her ship jumped to light speed. Nora smiled. "We didn't win by fighting," she said to no one in particular. "We won by being who we are." Back on the orbital station, Maya Ruiz stood alone for a moment after the talks ended. She looked out at the stars, at the blue curve of Earth below. A year ago, they had walked away in silence. Now, they returned not because they needed the council, but because the galaxy needed balance. Daniel joined her. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "Not if we stop paying attention," he said, "but as long as we remember why we left, we'll know how to stay." Far away on a quiet moon in the expanse, Carl Briggs and a group of Myrrh elders planted the first seeds of a new forest, using soil enriched by human tech and water purified by shared effort. No cameras, no speeches, just life returning. The Zorath watched from a distance. They did not interfere. They were learning too. In the end, humanity had not changed the galaxy with weapons or threats. They had changed it by walking away and showing in their absence that some things cannot be replaced. Trust, fairness, quiet courage. The council had mistaken these for weakness. Now they knew better, and as the first joint patrol ship vanished into the stars, carrying many species under one mission, the galaxy felt whole again. Not because humans came back, but because everyone finally understood what they had almost lost.